Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode number 66, or as I like to say, episode number one of the Gamers Deep Dive Experience. Because tonight we're going to mash up both our shows. Why? Well, last week we angered the internet gods. That's right. We had episode number 65, which I can't remember if I think Cleese actually did put it up there, maybe, or at least partly, maybe at first. I'm not sure. Excuse me.
Yeah, not intentionally. A random bit of bytes and audio wound up on the internet, and I've just been too lazy to suppress it.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry. YouTube went down last week, unfortunately, as we were doing our show about probably halfway through. So we kind of talked about it, and we were kind of mash up. We already kind of talked halfway through that show, so we're going to go through our playlist today, and then kind of jump in since we're playing. Obviously, it's the thick of the holiday season. Kind of go into just kind of a fall gaming games type of topic of sorts. So with us tonight, as you just heard, is Mr. Agasically Stamos. Clean shaven, Agasically Stamos. How are you?
Good. Good.
All right, he's good. Up next, we have Mr. Swiss Guard. Swiss, how are you?
Doing well. It's you guys weren't panicking and like putting, your bottled water, like getting that all ready and checking your MREs and whatnot when YouTube started to go down.
No, I was fine.
You didn't do that after we got off the show.
No, it looked like a lot of people on Twitter did.
Hey, wait, Swiss, are you is that a new podcast room?
No.
Oh, okay, right.
It's a white wall. How can you tell the difference?
We moved a dresser out of the boys' room into here, and there's some amiibo on top. That's the difference.
I know what he did. He cut his hair. That's why he looks different.
That too.
That's what it is. And last but not least, of course, we have Mr. DBQ Hams, as you just heard. DB, how are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, just hold on. I need to match the excitement of Swisscar here. So I'm doing just fine. Thank you. Just fine. So, but I am not in a new room, a newly painted wall, or anything else. But I am ready to play some new games and talk about them. So, what have we got on tap for tonight?
All right. So tonight, let's start out with what we've been playing these past few weeks. Actually, it had been, I think, a couple weeks even before last week's show. So we got quite a few things to go over. Swiss, let's start with you. You got some PC stuff, it looks like, to start off with.
Yeah, so let's see. We kind of, before YouTube failed us, I was talking BattleTech, and we were talking on last week's show, we were talking about reputation systems and whatnot. And mostly, like, I just enjoy the tactical aspects. The reputation system, I understand it. It's adding a layer of money management, because that's a lot more of the game than I know Prime cares to admit or be enthusiastic about. I find it makes it more realistic, because I drink the Kool-Aid. I'm drinking the BattleTech Kool-Aid. So with the different factions, if they like you, things cost less. If they hate you, things cost more. And you have to be cognizant of, where you are when you're trying to get supplies or recruit new mercenaries. And it's not like you can jump around from system to system, but it may take you 3 weeks to get out of one system's territory. And if you're about to run out of money, you may not have that luxury. So it adds to the game if you buy into the premise. The other PC game, I played some Destiny 2, I think with the Gasclees. We might have done, we played a little bit. I don't have much commentary on that, other than there was some very odd, and it made me feel guilty, by the way. There was some very odd level landscapes, and I just got weird vibes, and I was like, I've seen this before. And then, you know what it was? It was like Raku, or whatever they called my planet that I started off on No Man's Sky. It was like the exact same thing, and I was like, wow, the red foliage, like just the way. And then And I mentioned that to Agascles, and he was just like, "Oh, that's nice. We got to go get that. We got to go get that guy over there." It's like,
So you're
okay.
on Nessus then? Is that the one with the red foliage?
Yeah, it must have
Kind
been.
of some turquoise hues as well.
So, but it made me feel guilty because I haven't touched No Man's Sky in a while, and that's another PC game. And I kind of thought that it would be the game to fall away, and it has been. But that's been my PC experience. The big thing in my household though is that I got my wife hooked on Destiny 2. So she's a Titan, and she's been playing, and we both picked up the Forsaken DLC. So I'm probably going to have some more substantial reports in the future because it's not going to be me playing like for an hour once a month. I think we're going to start. I'm going to try to really sink my teeth into the game and get to some of the later content.
Which class do you? I'm sorry, I guess, please. Which class do you choose?
I'm a warlock.
Okay, good man.
So are we living in a world where I'm the only person who doesn't have the Forsaken DLC?
I don't have it either.
Well, no offense, I wasn't counting you in the sample population.
Okay. I have Destiny too.
Okay.
So
When it goes on sale this summer, in the summer of 19, then Prime will pick it up.
$2. That's my price.
So one thing that Swiss got exposed to, and I'm kind of curious to hear because I think this is a surprise for people who step into Destiny 2 is Swiss got exposed to the platforming that was in Destiny 2. I think this time, because we were in that section in the underground caverns, I think, where like the jumps are really weird and actually where like certain classes have to take different routes because their jumps work differently.
I found it. I had an easier time of it. I witnessed a few of your untimely demises.
Right.
So, but it. So far, I haven't been annoyed with it. It's there. In theory, planets may have difficult terrain. I can accept it. The one that was a little bit pushing the envelope was the mission on Titan, I think, where it's just basically a bunch of catwalks that you have to go on, and if you can't do the jumps, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's the one we did with DBQ's uncle.
Yeah, that one usually ends up getting people because it's early in the game, right? It's on the second planet, and it really is that first time that you're kind of pushed to be vertical and to move distances. But if that turns you off from jumping, there's not a whole lot more. Even in the campaign, there's not a whole lot more. And as I think about in the DLCs, there's a little bit, but nothing that really compares to that frustration of Titan.
Well, to me, it gets weird and funky because it rears its head at weird times, right? So, and let me say that first exposure to over platforming design on Titan is one that is highly discriminatory, in my opinion, towards warlocks, right? Because it's severely vertical, and warlocks, in my mind, when I played it as a warlock, have a very difficult time figuring out some of the kind of the goofier, like the weird, funky ways they have to come at that level. Mm-hmm. But then you get exposed to it again, where we were just talking about in the caverns underground on Nessus. But then the one that really particularly drove me nuts was you get exposed to it again on the surface of Nessus when you have to climb the Great Tree. And then there's a mission where, like, even then once you climb it, then you have to traverse it horizontally over to another section of the map. Like, and you have to go over on the tree. And then you have to mantle from there onto rock. And actually there was, in the last few weeks, there was a mission where I was so angry. You get over there and you have to fight a Minotaur, like a amped up Minotaur. It's a very small space as far as like available horizontal surface area. So it's very easy to like fall off and go all the way back down to the bottom and then have to go all the way back over to the other side of the map, reclimb the flipping tree, and then traverse back over. But during that fight, an engram dropped, and it fell in like a weird like crevice part of like a branch of the tree, anyway, I tried to get it, couldn't, wound up dying, and then by the time I came back, I just had no situational awareness for where the thing actually dropped. So, I mean, granted, I mean, my characters are high enough level that I shouldn't be bothered about one engram, but it's the principle of the thing.
Well, speaking of character levels, and this is going to foreshadow a discussion I think we're going to probably have later in the show, but one thing about Destiny 2 that I've noticed, I believe when you and I, when we get more people in our fire team, they increase the difficulty of the characters or the enemies, right? Is that accurate?
Not that I've ever experienced. No, not like the Division did, or you don't get an increased density like you do in Borderlands. It's pretty much the same.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Unless, I mean, maybe you noticed something.
It's the same for who, though? Right, because like in an instance where Swiss is like a level 8 and I'm like a level 30, like what is the level of enemies that we can... I want to say it feels like you encounter something kind of in between.
I think it depends on where you're at, right? Like if you're in a public patrol zone that with original Destiny 2 character, I mean, enemies, it's still going to be relatively easy to kind of plow through those. Now that the Forsaken has dropped, there are, I've even found like going back as a lower level character into some of those areas, the Forsaken has amped up the levels on some of those kind of scrub enemies. So that could be what you read into.
Well, I guess what I maybe I assumed too much, but I felt like I was like a level 10 or 11, and Agascles, I think you're about 30. Is that accurate? Somewhere in there. But I didn't feel like I was struggling, and Agascles was just like the hand of God plowing through the levels. So, and we were playing through my campaign missions. So I felt like the level should have been structured towards me, but I still felt like us together as a fire team, it was enough of a challenge. I mean, we weren't really hampered, but the gameplay didn't seem trite.
Yeah, I didn't feel like we were encountering a bunch of level 8 enemies.
So
right, and I don't know. And then I mean, there's always been things like even if you go back to Destiny 1, right? Like, and I can't remember the name. So what's the first new enemy that emerges in Destiny out of the DLC? The Taken, right? Like, when that DLC dropped, like, and I was in an open patrol area, I wasn't even a level to have completed the primary campaign, and if a level 30 or 40 or whatever was in the area, then Taken would start popping up, right? So it feels like it's doing something that potentially exposes a lower level character to higher level enemies. But what exactly it's doing, I don't know.
All right. Well, those were kind of my thoughts in my last Destiny playthrough.
All right, nice. Sounds like I gotta start playing that because I had no idea what you guys are talking about. Talking about Nesis, and I don't know what you're talking about. So I gotta jump in there, and maybe I can jump in with somebody one day. So, but let's get going here. So, Mr. Agascles, I'm gonna skip your first game just because I want to talk about that a little bit later when we talk about our fall stuff. But you actually had another PC game that you were playing as Dying Light.
So it's a little bit funny that you felt like Swiss's whole opening monologue was not the actual start of the podcast, and now we're going to get going. Yeah, I mean, so I guess I've rolled a little forward from this playlist. I don't even know if it's worth me going back to talk about that.
Add some stuff. That's fine too.
Yeah. So sorry, I didn't update this. So I guess what's more pertinent that I've recently been playing is since we're not going to talk about Forza Horizon 4 yet, is I have broken out Burnout Paradise Remastered and have been revisiting that. So I've spent some pretty chunky blocks of time with it at a sitting, 2 to 3 hour blocks. And trying to maybe focus on it a little bit more. I mean, part of what's going on is, I mean, it's October for me, so I don't know if you guys know, but for me, this is where for my
October for everybody else. Is it November already for me? Oh my god.
My point being is my YouTube anniversary is in like December. So my new season of rounding off Infinity game streams and game captures typically starts the weekend after November. So in October, I start spending a lot of time kind of thinking about how I'm gonna like change the content and change my approach to, to creating that content and to gaming in general. And I've been on this trend of just trying to sit and kind of marinate with individual games a little bit longer at a sitting rather than kind of doing what I used to do, which is like in one night, I might play one game for an hour and then switch to another game for an hour. So the interesting thing about Burnout Paradise, it's revealing a few warts. I think one thing is I think this is one of these games that a lot of gamers remember much more fondly than the game really warrants. I think Criterion did a really great job of pulling the wool over a lot of people's eyes and kind of bedazzling them with the spectacular crashes and all the mayhem. But the game has some problems, and I think I've mentioned it before. But my big thing is we've discussed and navel gazed a lot about what should a remaster be? Should a remaster be a faithful reproduction of the game, almost exactly as it was originally designed, with the only exception being graphical upgrades? My exposure to Burnout Paradise Remastered firmly puts me on the side of the fence of no, it should not be that. And if there were stupid things in the original design that have been overridden by modern design, I think it bears consideration as to whether or not those things should be updated. And my biggest thing with Burnout Paradise Remastered is there's no GPS system in the game. So you look at the map, and it kind of feels like back in the days of like MapQuest, right? You look at the map, you decide an event that you're going to go to, you literally say to yourself, so it looks like I need to go down the street a ways and then take a left and then a right. And you try and hold that in your memory as you then sprint across the map at a speed faster than allows you to actually maintain situational awareness of really where you really are in regards to your originally perceived map in your head. And then you frequently have to stop and pop the map back open to reset like where you are, and then take a look at how you're lining up on your actual destination. So it's a burdensome, gamifying administrivia thing that is kind of silly. And I'm like, just give me a blasted waypoint. Like, let me put a damn waypoint on the map so I can just drive to it. Again, this being in stark contrast to something like Forza Horizon 4, which, again, as you mentioned, we'll go back and talk about. The other thing that really... Go ahead, DBQ. Were you going to ask a question?
No, I think that actually this is a really nice comparison between the two, because I remember thinking the same thing when I played the remaster of Burnout Paradise back in the spring when it was released. Because it really is. It is simply just a graphical overlay. I mean, it's a up-res and a pass-over on that, but there's no mechanics. There's no other quality of life aspects there. And I don't know that they ever even proposed that there would be, but your point is really well made, is that we're, a decade out from Burnout Paradise? And at the time, the fact of an open world was something that was amazing and new. At least it was novel and new. I'm looking at Swiss with the amazing words, and I know his opinion there. But I think, especially with what Playground Games has done with Forza Horizon, even what Ubisoft has done with The Crew 2, the amount of kind of quality of life navigational aspects to that has really increased the accessibility of that genre, I think. Because I think you're right. Like, Burnout Paradise works for me really well as a game to cruise around, smash into things, find some billboards and other stuff to crash into. But as a functional racer, it's even harder to play now than it was at the time.
Right, and it's time, right? That's the aggravating thing about it, is it's not a zero consequence, it's not a zero impact oversight, right? It's literally how much physical time do I have to spend in the game to actually get things done, and that is a thing that slows you down and decreases your velocity. Let's not get it twisted though, because it's not like Forza Horizon 4 has it perfect by any means, and I'll throw some shade at those guys here in a little bit. The last thing that I'll mention on Burnout Paradise is the thing that's burdensome or a nuisance is the turn signal waypoint system, or like guidance system, where as you're approaching a turn, the turn signal on the actual vehicle on screen starts going off, and then you get some iconography at the top of the screen. Well, focal point wise, you're not looking at the very top of your screen, nor are you really looking at the vehicle. You're trying to see where in the world you're supposed to go in this world where things are moving at the speed of light. And so I tend to not pick up on either of those cues, particularly when things are very busy and I'm trying to avoid traffic. And I'm like, this thing is veritably useless. I wound up kind of switching my approach to the game this morning during the live stream and just kind of trying to be deciding my own route to a thing and trying to frequently look at the mini map to follow that and not worry about the automated cues that I was giving. And it actually drives me to a point where I wish you could turn those automated cues off. So at any rate, but the game has some interesting things. It has a lot of different cars to drive. I'm not super crazy about the what I want to say, the variants in the mission types, right? I kind of like, if you just gave me road rage and races, I would be okay. But I did also catch some very insane air in the Big Island DLC. There are some incredibly crazy vertical stretches and ramps that get you, basically at like a couple thousand feet, it feels like, above the city, and that's pretty awesome. So anyway, that's what I've been playing.
Did they not have those kind of jumps or ramps in the like the base game? Or
maybe they do, but so you've brought me around to yet another point of nuisance. So when you go into so the menu opens up and you've got now, because the remaster has like all the DLC in it, you have like 8 or 9 different menu selection items of like your initial entry point into Paradise City. So you can pick Paradise cars, Paradise bikes, the Big Island cars, the legendary vehicles, all this stuff. Certain categories of those, when you pick them, change the event that you see on the map, right? Because there are events that are only accessible by certain cars in certain categories. And actually, like when you're in bikes, one point of nuisance is that, as far as I can tell, the junkyards go away. So once you're in a bike, the only way to get back to like switch out a vehicle is to pop back out to the main menu, which is aggravating. It also took me a while to figure out like, why in the world am I not seeing any junkyards on here? But to answer your question more specifically, no, because they might be there, but you don't readily pick up on them because you don't have an event that puts you on that route. And the one that I'm specifically talking about is an event that you get once you're in one of the vehicles that's in like the Big Island pack.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I played a little. I played a little bit of it when it came out. I think it was backwards compatible, and I think that came to the Games with Gold at one point. So I played a little bit of that at one point.
Yep.
So I didn't get into it as much as I would have liked, though.
And now it's also available in the Vault if you have EA Access. So
okay,
it's there, or Access Origin. So again, there's a lot of ways to play it relatively cheaply, but there are some limitations. But I think you're right, Agasicles. Some of that big air is only available in the DLC aspects.
Okay, and do you stay on the mic, because
I will. But at first, I just want to say I never even knew that your car made a turn signal. Because I that's not what I'm looking at when I'm driving in Burnout. So you just shocked me there. I mean, in some ways, it's a nice touch, but it'd be really nice to know if that was navigational. Yeah. Anyhow,
he didn't want to get pulled over, so he has.
No. I did that already once this month. So.
Well, the other thing, I mentioned is now, of course, if you sustain some damage where you don't have those tail lights, then they don't signal anything.
There we go.
That's another nice touch. There you go.
So but I ruined your transition. You were on a segue, and I just dragged you right off of it.
That's right, because now I'm going to skip 2 of your games. No, I was going to do that anyway. So we're going to skip Forza and Mega Man, and we're going to jump to The World Ends With You, even though it's kind of a fall game, but it's a redo, so I'll allow it. So talk about The World Ends With You on the Switch.
So yeah, I won't talk too much about it, but I think if anybody's read anything related to The World Ends With You recently as it's come out, I guess I would be in agreement with most of the reviewers that it's a really pretty version and it's still a great story. It just is not a good port. I guess that's, technically it's a fine port. It's graphically looks good. There's not any slowdown. There's not any hitches. It is just, so it's a $50 game, and the control schemes are either you play it in handheld mode and it's all touchscreen, or you play it in tabletop mode or docked, and then you're playing it with Wii pointers. So you're playing it almost like a Wii game, where you have a reticle on the screen that you're using the Joy-Con to aim. So there's no other kind of joypad controls. There's no analog controls. There's no buttons. It is all or nothing. And there are buttons once you're in the aiming with the reticle, but a lot of the attacks are based on swipes, are based on movements. Because this was originally a DS game back from 2008. It was a wonderful DS game, great sound, still a really great sense of style, or unique sense of style at that stage. One of my favorite DS games, and I found myself kind of falling off of the remaster relatively quickly, and a lot of it was the lack of tactile buttons and control, right? So I've got to move my character. It suffers from the Switch being almost too small of a tablet to function as a tablet game, right? So I'm moving my character around on the touchscreen. At the same time, I now need to do swipes or other motions on the touchscreen to do attacks. And if I'm playing on a larger tablet or on an iPad, considering this is basically the $18 mobile port, I probably would have a little more screen real estate to be able to do that. But here I found myself wishing that I could be moving my character around with the analog stick or a D-pad, and then even still doing the swipes on the screens for the attacks. By the nature of trying to do both in between the limited touch and the kind of screen capacity, I found navigating was not nearly as intuitive as what the original game was. I guess I would say that if you've never played it, you don't have that as a point of reference, and it works. It's still a really cool story. It's still it's still got that great sense of style. The music is still amazing, but it's just not as it feels like a quick port rather than something that was done with any type of deliberate care, where there could have been different ways to do that, right? You could have had to balance. Part of the whole aspect of the original DS game is balancing two screens and two different characters on each screen. That part is gone when you have one screen and that second character kind of jumps in, but you could have done a balance where you're controlling with the D stick and still having, the analog stick, and still having to do something with your hands. So there could have been two different control schemes. But I think it does add. I didn't have a chance to play co-op, but it does add co-op. So I was really excited when this was announced back in the spring, because this was kind of one of my favorite DS games, as I said. But I also sent it back to GameFly by the end of the weekend and just found like, I can go back to my DS copy if I really, if this is something that I want. Or actually, I'd probably, instead of paying the $50 for the game, I'd pay $17 for the mobile game and get basically the same experience.
So I'm assuming on the DS side, it was just all touch?
No, you had it used the touchscreen, it used the D-pad, it used the buttons, it used kind of all the different control aspects there.
That's weird that they would do that then. Just, I don't know what they're thinking. So just gameplay wise, is it turn-based then, or?
No, it's real time. Yeah, so it kind of ends up playing, you're locked into kind of, once a battle starts, you're locked into a screen, so you can't really move around it's a 2D plane anyways. But it is very much kind of real time, and you've got to adjust strategies based on different, there's elemental attacks and a variety of different skill and stat boosts and things like that, and what you're wearing or your pins serve as kind of your skills. So it's got a lot of analogs to kind of traditional RPGs, but it's set in a late 2000s ish Akihabara and Tokyo aspects there in terms of setting.
Okay.
Have you is there any game that sticks out in your mind that's implemented that like Wiimote kind of aiming mechanism well?
On the Switch or back
Period.
throughout the. Oh, sure, yeah. I would say Metroid Prime 3 did it well. I would say that I found Red Steel 2 to do that really well in terms of a first-person shooter with the Motion Plus. You know, if I'm thinking of simply just kind of the aiming aspect of it, something that wasn't kind of a Wii Sports type of games, I think that there were definitely games in there. I'd also put things that used the aiming, something like Silent Hill Awakening, not Awakening, but whatever the Silent Hill game was on Wii, also did some really creative uses of motion control, and that would be another example there.
Yeah, I haven't really heard you, mention our RPGs in that list. They've all been more of a shooter-ish. Not a full-on FPS, but that mechanic was. It's a different mechanic.
Well, I think the pointer exactly right. I think trying to think of that as a reticle on a screen for a first-person shooter is a very different interface than thinking about this as a 2D action RPG where all the action, where you're basically using your motion control as a laser pointer, really, to tell your character where to go. It really just feels kind of like a sloppy implementation.
Who this was a Square game?
Right? Yep, this is a Square Enix. Yep.
They do this version, or is there somebody that ported it for them?
It was a port. I'd have to go back and look and see who the third party.
Who it was.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Any other questions on that game? All right, so let's jump to me now. I'm gonna skip my gluttony of Switch games that I played because I had some time off that I was kind of on vacation, but I played a lot of Switch games. But I'm gonna jump over to the NES games on the Switch that we can play now through their online service. Kind of interesting. So I played a bunch of them. I'm kind of looking at it here now just because I don't remember. So I played Balloon Fight, Baseball, Donkey Kong, Dragon. No, not Double Dragon. I didn't play that yet. Dr. Mario, Excite Bite. A lot of them, just kind of a big variety of them. And I've come. It's kind of weird. So I jump into these games like maybe every session that I jump onto my Switch, and I almost treat them like a mobile game. Like I just play it for 5 minutes or so, maybe 10 minutes at the most. I think baseball I probably did the most with like 10 minutes or so, which is stark contrast with back in the day. I was playing these for hours at a time. It's just kind of a weird thing that now these are I just consider these a mobile game, and it's kind of, I don't know why they don't put these on mobile. I mean, obviously they want to keep it in house and keep it on their systems, but it was just kind of weird how that kind of came about. And I was just thinking about that just now too, that these are just bite-sized games now to me, which is really weird. But I had a lot of fun with these games. I think the last one I played was River City Ransom, which I always really liked that game. So I'm just kind of going through the whole list here and just kind of playing one each time I jump on, and just so I can get through them all.
Have you tried the SP Zelda, where it gives you a stronger sword, additional containers of hearts, and other things?
Oh, no, not yet. Like it unlocks everything, basically, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a huge unlock. It's not like it unlocks everything, but it gives you kind of like the equivalent of, here's your $1.99 DLC starter pack that you played for your mobile game.
No, I didn't even try like the regular version yet. So I didn't really like the original Zelda back in the day. I know that's blasphemy and all, but I just couldn't get into it. But maybe I'll give it a try now, just because kind of more.
I'd encourage you to try the SP version, because it does give a little bit more. I mean, it's still kind of obtuse in terms of some of those secrets, but having the additional, at least when I played it, again, I'm just kind of dabbling in it as well, but having the additional boosts made it a little more accessible.
So is it a DLC starter pack, DBQ, or is it a DLC cheat code?
Yeah, I think back in the day, it would have been a cheat code. It would have been exactly. It would have been in those, folder pages of Nintendo Power that would give you a 12-digit or 64-digit character code to put in order to unlock the additional equipment. Yes, I was just going with the 2018 analog of, instead of putting in a cheat code, you could just give us a few more dollars.
So how do you guys? I mean, can we do this sidestep real quick? I mean, how do you guys feel about that?
About the remix aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, well, do you guys think it's fine? Because this is again one of these remake remaster things, right? Is that okay? Is it fine for somebody to experience that with the training wheels on?
I think it's great. Actually, I'm loving it, and I think if they only did that, you'd have some Nintendo purists who would be upset that it isn't the original game, right? But if they dropped the original game and then this month in October they dropped 3 games and then this SP version of Zelda, which was kind of the secret one, I think it's excellent. It's a way for people to kind of experience it maybe in a different way. They did something like this on the 3DS and the Wii U where they did the NES remix, right, where they gave you different conditions or specific settings where you had to come in and try to beat a high score or finish it within a certain time period. I think that this is one of the things where the online service actually has the potential to do some value adds versus just ROMs, where if they do something like a score attack mode or that has an online leaderboard, suddenly something like Balloon Fight actually has legs because you could do some type of online regional leaderboards or something like that.
Get him, Swiss.
Well, the whole point, it's old school Zelda. Like, you need to experience old school Zelda as old school Zelda. But
get off my lawn!
They still have that though. I mean, it's still there.
I've softened my stance a little bit because I'm starting to realize it's all nostalgia and games have evolved over time, and there's a reason that you only want to sit there for 5 minutes and experience that because there's better experiences out there now. And it's just, it's like if you want to experience what we had back in the day, I don't really like the training wheels aspect, as you put it, but
I need those.
What I'm thinking, the analogy isn't, excuse me, the analogy isn't so much DLC as it is story mode, which is starting to come in all these open world games, right? Or has been around when you play God of War or Horizon Zero Dawn, you can set it to, they don't want to call it very easy mode anymore because that offends sensibilities. So it's just story mode. And to be honest, I can understand people that just look, I don't want to have to struggle at the game. I want to chill when I play. And they're catering to that. So I am not going to really get on my soapbox about that. And it's just look, I want to chill and play some Zelda, and I don't want to grind my teeth because I remember grinding my teeth. I never beat it because I couldn't figure out where the last dungeon was. It was, yeah. I can understand having to soften the stance.
Well, the next thing we'll have Battletoads remastered story mode.
999 lives.
Right. So I guess I feel like I haven't had the chance to ask you guys, how do you guys feel? Because you mentioned, Swiss, that at the end of the day these games are really just nostalgia, and it's a question as to whether or not the value is in going back and reliving those experiences or moving forward. I'm curious if I'm going to call it the Virtual Console. I don't care what Nintendo says it is. If the Virtual Console wasn't there on the Switch, you wouldn't be playing these games. Do you feel like you would miss anything? I mean, what are you guys giving up that you're not putting time in on to play these games? Because Prime, I think I get what you're saying. You're like, it's really not a distraction. I go in, I play 5 or 10 minutes every time I turn on my Switch, and it's just kind of like my warm-up. But it doesn't keep me from getting to my current experience that's waiting of the new game that I bought. But how are you guys time managing it, and is it detracting from you making progress in something else?
It's not detracting me because I'm not playing it. So yeah, I know what they are, and I've broken at the NES with my kids and stuff, but it's
it's a trap.
It's just the games back then, they had a different goal, and I mean, you pounded your head against the wall till you broke through, and it was just that mentality of I'm not going to let the game beat me, and it's just we just games are different now, and
now we're just soft because we can say
yeah. But I don't know it. If you want, I used to like excuse me, Agastocles keeps like trying to key me up, and 6 months ago I would have been keyed up until I got the Super NES Classic and I realized, oh wait, I can't sit here and keep playing this. So it's nice that they throw it in there. It's a nice little added bonus, and I think it's perfect for how Prime is using it. As far as like, people being able to experience, oh, this is what games was like from like a historical, almost like a museum perspective, it's good, but I just can't see it as a viable entertainment alternative to the modern game. It's just
right. And I just want to clear. So there are definitely times when I'm just trying to like poke you and prod you into beast mode, right? Or any of you guys. I'm really not. I'm really. I know where I've settled on it because you guys have heard me. Like I can't be bothered to go back and play old games, right? But my backlog of stuff is bad enough. I can't afford the distraction of like something that I played in the 80s when I was a kid being put in front of my face, and that keeping me from, pounding the bricks in Forza Horizon 4 or whatever. I mean, I've said like this whole thing about these nostalgia consoles that come out, these $99 1980s who's what's it's or whatever. I feel like it's a waste of time. Atari's doing their thing, and I find that that's like the Star Citizen of these like console remakes. So it's I mean, I really wanted to bounce it off you guys because in Swiss it sounds like at least you are kind of, I think, landing in the same place, right? We're about to talk about a whole slew of fall releases that we're not going to all get through, and then you. I guess the main thing it causes me to question is we've all suffered at various points in our lives through the 8 stages of recovering from Steam addiction, and just the constant, mass propagation of games as warheads, right? Because Steam keeps popping a thing in front of your face that's on sale, and I guess I kind of feel like a lot of this virtual console stuff is kind of the same thing. And again, you have access to it. Maybe you're not putting a quarter in the machine for every one of these games that you play, but like I said, it's kind of a trap.
Well, the big thing for me is I wanted to share with my kids why I got into gaming, and like share with them the excitement that I felt. And it can't compare to like, it's just a different style. And I came to realize I don't need to make them play. I mean, not make them is a strong word, but try to prod them to play OG Legend of Zelda when we have just as much fun sharing our experiences with Breath of the Wild. So, and it limited time. It's nice that they're there, but like you said, there's so much out there that I'm not playing now that I want to play. I'm not going to go back and rehash something from, from my childhood like that.
All right. Well, I guess, Cleese, I know you now. I know you're trying to get Swiss going because you mentioned Star Citizen. So, but before we actually
there has been some news stories on that.
See,
but we're not going to get into that today. No, maybe for the news show next week, I'll dredge some of those out.
Stay on the mic though, Swiss, because we're gonna before we get into the fall gluttony of games, we want to talk about God of War because I believe you beat it, right? Was that one of the games you beat this past week?
I just started God of War. I beat Nier Automata.
Nier Automata. Okay, I'm sorry.
And honestly, I'm wondering if Nier Automata is capable of being declared Game of the Year because it's new on Xbox this year.
It's true.
Anyway,
maybe. Well, go ahead. Go ahead and God of War. Have you gotten very far, or?
Not really. I mean, enough to get an initial impression. And I think it's a very solid game. I like the Christopher Judge as Kratos, and I'm excited to continue to play it, but for some reason I never got I don't get the combat as much as I did in Nier Automata or like Horizon Zero Dawn. It always feels a little bit clunky to me, and I always feel like I'm a step behind. And I feel like the enemies at the very beginning, especially, are needlessly difficult. Like, I'm pounding on this guy and he's not doing anything to me. I can dodge and parry and whatever, but I just feel like I have to beat the dead horse too long before the horse becomes dead. So it's just like I'm pounding on the enemy and I'm pounding and I'm why aren't you dead yet? What is there something? Am I doing something? Oh, there he goes. Okay. And so it felt like the balance is off. And but
how far are you into it? I mean,
well,
because
I'm not
I played
that
a
far,
couple
but I
hours.
heard once you get your skills up, and I just started to, level up a little bit and unlock some skills. So once you get your skills up, I heard that it completely goes the opposite way and you become overpowered. Like that's what I've read. So I don't know if the difficulty curve was as good as it needed to be, but it feels like a God of War game. You have your little kill boxes and you navigate through and um, it's a solid title. It's a very good title, and I'm going to continue playing. And I'm looking forward to continue playing. It's a beautiful game, and I'm intrigued about like the story a little bit. But yeah, I think it plays to this year's, like, we're kind of all wondering what the breakout game is going to be.
Yeah, I'm really interested to hear you say that because it did get such hype to it, but I also fell off of it after a while, right? I can appreciate it at a technical level, but from a story and even from a mechanic standpoint, it just never hooked me to the same extent that it seemed to have hooked other players in the mass media.
I know that I have not really played enough yet to really get whether is this story going to draw me in. Right now, there's enough intrigue for me to continue, but I understand what you mean about the mechanics. I love the mechanics in Nier Automata. It's fast. The combat's fluid. I had a great time. I like it's a game that you literally just enjoy fighting battles over and over again with an RPG where you enjoy fighting. So
one thing I was going to ask,
little struggles.
DB, can you help me out? Is part of the problem is God of War kind of like a timing based combat system similar to the free flow system in the Arkham games and the Lord of the Rings games?
No, I'd put that more in Spider-Man's camp in terms of that you do have that timing and the your counters and that aspect. I mean, there is some counters here, and some of it is as you unlock things, you do get a little more of that timing, but it's a matter of kind of mixing up your heavy and light attacks, your throws, being able to do some elemental pieces in there as you start unlocking more powers. I mean, the combat is satisfying. I mean, there's a weight to it. It's not to the Arkham aspect in terms of kind of getting that rhythm, but it's not also, it's not as button mashy as original God of War was. So it feels like an evolution in the God of War combat, but it never really grabbed me. It didn't have that kind of rhythm that even some of the Shadow of War or Shadow of Mordor aspects did. Right. Does that feel? I mean, you've played it a little bit. Agasicles back in the spring. Yeah. Swiss. Does that seem? You're playing it right now. Is my recollection is 5 months old. So if that's off based, please correct me.
I don't think it's the Arkham. I agree with you. I don't think it's Arkham aspect. It's just you get a mob of enemies, and maybe it's just the way I expect it to play. But I feel like me being able to jump between who I'm supposed to attack and just land my combo and move on. It felt more natural to me in Horizon Zero Dawn, and I was playing God of War simultaneously as I was playing Nier Automata, and Nier Automata has a very fast-paced, quick, nimble combat system, and where you're mixing ranged attacks and melee attacks and dodges, and you're jumping all through, and it just, that to me was far more satisfying. And then I get into God of War, and it just felt, I don't, slow's not the right word, but I just kind of felt like it was a slog a little bit of
Well,
the combat.
I could see that, right? Because I mean, even I could see that being intentional, because Nier Automata is a fast-paced, frenetic. I mean, there is a nimbleness to the characters and to the weapons they use, versus the kind of weight of Kratos and his axe, right? I mean, that
Right.
there is, I could see. I mean, it's kind of fun that you had those kind of back-to-back comparisons, because some of that is intentional, but then it also still plays
It
out.
can be intentional, and it could be a good decision for the game. It may just be a personal preference. Like, I mean, it may just be the way I like to approach combat in games. I don't like the slog. I can't stand the Arkham combat system. I don't like the timing based systems at all. And I never felt like I was like the Marvel superhero ascendant when I was playing Arkham. It always felt like I was just doing enough to get through the game, and I was never unlocking the full potential. But it never clicked with me.
No, this is good. I mean, this is a good, in another month and a half from now, we're going to be talking about Game of the Year stuff. So it's nice that we've had a chance to kind of come back and touch on some of these bigger games as we head in there.
Yes. Speaking of which, now we can go into the future, or the present and into the future. Talk about the fall releases that are coming out, or that have already come out. So Zeus, I'm sorry, Agascles and DB, you've been playing Forza 4. Please tell us your impressions. Is it as good as everybody say it is?
Oh, okay. So I'm going to let you start, Agascles, because you kind of have been teasing it a little bit earlier in the podcast. So what do you think? You're wringing your hands. You've said you've got some gripes with it. Where do you land on the Forza 4 or Forza Horizon 4 experience?
I'm just wringing my hands in an effort to stay awake, because I've been up. I'm on like 2 hours of sleep, and I was up at 4:45 a.m. for a live stream. So, man, there's so many weird things. It just interrupted and stopped me, because this might be a little stream of consciousness kind of thing. And I know we're getting towards the end of the podcast. So first of all, I guess gameplay, like what is weird to me is that there have been 2 million concurrent players supposedly on this game at any one time. It's a 92% rating on Metacritic. It's a racing game that is the fourth in its iteration. Usually those scores trend downwards. I don't get it, right? I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the best Forza Horizon ever. Maybe it's the pinnacle. Maybe it's like the best one they've ever done. It's extremely weird to me that this game is getting the accolades that it's getting in the midst of the holiday season releases, as if it's like the second coming. Like, I don't like Forza Horizon. Like, everybody's like falling off their stools for this. It's a solid racing game, undoubtedly. It's graphically gorgeous. I've been playing it on, obviously on Xbox One X. I have it on PC. I haven't had a chance to play it there in 4K on a GTX 1070. It looks great. There are some things, and I think I mentioned this maybe about another Forza game sometime in the last year of a podcast. It does the thing that they do in the Forza season, where for the first 2 hours, they are in my way to a point where I'm almost angry enough to put the game away. There's a lot of go fetch. There's a lot of admin. There's a lot of, you got to talk me through a tutorial for 5 minutes to get through a screen. There's a lot of locking you into an event. One of the big things that I dislike, and this pervades throughout the game, but it's very prevalent in the initial outing, is they will set you up to go to an event as if you can't, like you have to go there immediately, and you have to just drive whatever car you happen to have or they give you. But if you actually set a different waypoint, you can actually go to a hub or your house or whatever get a car, upgrade it, put a new skin on it, and then drive it to the thing. And it makes me really angry that not knowing that you the first few times you'll actually go to a race, drive an underpowered car, have to replay the event several times, only to eventually realize, oh, I actually didn't have to drive that in like this dumbed down, like bottom of the class car. I could have actually like souped the thing up and tuned it. The other thing is, and this does make me angry because it's a silly little game developer like nuisance that makes no practical sense, is they don't allow you to set a waypoint. They don't allow you to lock an icon on the screen as a waypoint. But you can set a waypoint literally 1 millimeter off that spot and drive to the vicinity of it and then proceed to go on to like the garage at the thing, right? So I'm just like, really? Like that's like, so.
I haven't had too much problem in terms of setting waypoints. There's been times where it doesn't seem consistent, right? I think there have been times where I've tried to set a waypoint for something and it won't lock it in, but then I can set for a same type of event just in a different part of the map and it'll lock it in just fine.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that is an interesting aspect of when you get to some of those, kind of showcase events in the initial kind of run through the different seasons, where it does.
The showcase one, you do have to drive a specific vehicle, but these are like the first race in like a new like series that's opened or something like that.
Sure, I'm thinking of even just the UI aspects of when you hit a showcase event, it puts it on your map and clears out everything else that's on your map, and you can't, you can back out and then pull your map back up and set up a different waypoint, but it does set it up like it wants you to go there directly when you don't have to, right? I mean, there's been times when I've done a showcase event at the end of kind of getting all my rep and being ready to go on to the next season.
Right. And it's a little bit, I just thought of it, it's a lot like the Destiny 2 end game, where you're given the impression that you have to play those missions in succession and you can't back out. But in reality, if you just quit out of the game and come back, it will start you at like your last checkpoint. But you don't get that when you're playing through it. It makes it feel like it's forcing you to proceed on to the next thing.
So I'll say that all of these criticisms are factual, but it's also a really great playing game. I could see why it's getting the praise that it's getting. I could see that it being the kind of pinnacle because it is really smooth. It really onboards you well. There are some UI aspects, but it plays really well, and it looks beautiful. No matter what you're running it on, at least between an X and an OG Xbox. But I will say that after kind of playing back to back Horizon 3 or Forza Horizon 3 and Horizon 4, it's still just Horizon, right? In a different landscape. I don't know. I mean, in some ways it makes the transition really easy because I just went from Australia to England, but it also feels like I'm still just playing the same game.
Yeah, but now I'll land on the other side of you, right? So, but what I think is great about the game is there's so many different things to do, and there's such a wide-ranging variety of events. Admittedly, some of those can become distracting, much in the same way that I suffered under Far Cry 5, where before I kind of got my head wrapped around the progression model, I would easily get distracted by things that weren't really value-added events. But you could figure those out, I think, in Forza Horizon 4. But actually, it's a blessing and a curse. So one negative I would say is I'm coming to dislike the auto upgrade thing, where like you take a car and it tells you, hey, to upgrade this to the maximum in Class C, here are the upgrades, and you just buy that. You don't have to do it yourself. It turns out that does some things, but if you go into the Forza Vista mode, which is the individual tuning screen, you will find that there are improvements that you can make to the vehicle that bump you up another point or two that like the AI doesn't do. And I'm like, well, why would you max me out at like $499, but then not put like dirt tires on the car when I'm taking it to a dirt racing series? So there's some things like that. But I have noticed I actually got into tuning, which is, I think you guys know, as much of a racing fan as I am, I tend to not like being bothered by like the tuning aspect. I used to when I was younger. Now I'm like, I can't be bothered. I actually spent a lot of time tuning a James car that I have from the James Bond DLC. And it was actually kind of fun, like trying to tweak like the extreme oversteer out of the car and racing it. And it was a fun experience because it was one of those kind of like movie kind of experiences where I tweaked the car, ran several events. I came in last, then I came in fifth. And by the time the thing was all over, I won a race. So that was really exciting. So there is a very nice and smooth, like keep working at it, keep chipping away at it kind of aspect to the game. And like you said, DB, a lot of these things are warts you don't surface unless you're like spending a lot. I mean, I played the game for a week and a half straight. It was the only thing that I played. So this is why, for me, some of those warts raise themselves. But other than that, it is pretty sweet, particularly in a year where we're not getting like the drove of racing games that we got last year.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think that is a good point because last year we had Motorsport 7 and Gran Turismo and a number of other ones. But this is, again, if you have Game Pass or if you don't have it, it's a great reason to try to even just dabble in Game Pass for a month or to try this out. And, if you have it on Game Pass, you have it both on PC and on Xbox. So now I do kind of want to load it up on my computer and see how it runs on a. So, but there's
you have a regular Xbox, right? Xbox One, or do you have a
yes.
X? Okay, so it still does look pretty good on that.
Yeah, the load times are long, but it looks really good. And again, you're moving quickly. So
so did you get rid of the X?
No. I still have. So this is we're at the end of a podcast. We'll talk about this later. So there will be another conversation about graphical fidelity in 4K and other pieces. But so yes, I have had a chance to play it both on 1080 screens and on 4K screens. So, but again, I've also played other stuff that on both 4K screens and 1080 screens with like Spider-Man on PS4, and still the same great looking game no matter which way you play it. So that's another console exclusive there. But Swiss. Not Swiss, but Prime, you've got some Call of Duty talk though. That's been so. Have you had a chance to play some Blackout, and is it meeting your needs?
Oh yeah. It's definitely exceeded what I was looking for in Call of Duty this year. Just because I hadn't played it in a few years. Excuse me. I skipped the last two, Infinity War and World War II. I did play the beta World War II, which is fine. I mean, I liked it, but I don't know. I just never picked it up. I had other things to play. But yeah, I'm really enjoying Black Ops 4. I think I mentioned this I don't know if I mentioned it like beforehand last podcast or maybe even the Flock chat. But I was kind of cold on just the regular multiplayer when I played the beta. But now that I've played a little bit more, I'm actually kind of enjoying it. So I've gotten more into it, and there's some little things just when the game in general that kind of irks me. And it's just cosmetic stuff like the skins that you unlock and stuff like that. It seems to be a little bit harder now to unlock that stuff.
You think that's related to the battle pass that they're putting out in terms of some of that to kind of gate that a little bit further, or does it? I mean, does it feel like it's taking cues from Fortnite in that aspect?
Yeah, I think that's what it is, and more so on the Blackout side than on just the regular multiplayer because they're all kind of separate now. Zombies too. I haven't even tried zombies yet. I'll try to try it one of these days. But there's like I was looking at a list on as far as the Blackout side, which is the Battle Royale game mode. I just how you can unlock the skins, and it's just some of the stuff is like ridiculous. It's like, what, I got to do all this stuff just to get a skin? I mean, come on, guys. I mean, I know it's a skin, but still, I kind of like I like to customize things, on my side. So I like to switch out my character and stuff like that. But I mean, it is what it is. That's fine. It doesn't really detract from the gameplay as far as Blackout. And like I said, when I played the beta for that, it's just like a super polished PUBG. Yeah, the graphics look great. It runs pretty smoothly. There's been some network issues lately, and not so much like rubber banding and lag and stuff like that. But it just I'm trying to read what the article I was reading the other day. I guess the beta servers.
Oh, this was around the corners. There was some article I read that on Polygon related to some of the hit detection.
Yeah, I guess like the beta servers were like super amped up, like awesome servers, and the ones they have now are not, or something like that. I forgot how they actually explained it, but and I guess they do that just so they can test the network, I suppose, or something. I forgot how they explained it. Why they would do something like that, why they would make like great servers for the beta and not so much on the finished product, um, but it still plays super smooth to me. I haven't had, like I said, that's been minor thing this past like week. And that might have been too because they had double experience points this weekend for multiplayer and for the zombies. So obviously you're gonna get a bigger load on the servers and stuff like that. But they've addressed it and said we're working on it. We're gonna do updates and stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see how it keeps going. Like I said, I was actually just playing through my PC now here. I was streaming from the Xbox to my PC playing Blackout. Man, it ran pretty smoothly, so I was pretty impressed by that. So, and I haven't done that for a long time. I think since they announced that you can, do that streaming, to your PCs. So, but yeah, I'm having a blast with it, and I get fed up or sick with one mode, I'll just jump to the other mode now, and go back and forth like that. And I also did play. They have.
Can I ask a Destiny related question?
Sure.
So is there anything from those modes that carry over, or are they all kind of gated and segregated out? Is there any level progression or any kind of overarching character progression to your account that carries from mode to mode?
No, it's all separate now. So all the leveling separate. Yeah, everything's separate. The zombie mode has like its own like currency, I guess it is. Like I said, I've never played with zombies, so I'm not really sure what that is. I forgot what it's called, like Neptium or something like that. So I guess you can use that to buy stuff and customize your stuff on that side. So
yeah, so it really just becomes really 3 separate games in that whole package then.
Yeah. So and then they also have like the story section where it's kind of a dossier of each of the classes that you could play, each of the characters. Excuse me. So I play a little bit of that. That's basically just a tutorial, though. I mean, so far that I've seen, when I go through it, there's kind of like in between each mission that you have to do, and it's really just okay. Here, this is there's Ajax. There's like I think like 8 or 9 different classes you can pick or characters. So I've gone like through a couple of them so far, and it just kind of shows their special ability because they all have different abilities that you can do. So when you're actually playing the game, it's just a tutorial running you through one of the maps from multiplayer or whatever. And you got to do this. One guy has a grenade launcher, another person has like it's almost like a gravity. I think it's called a gravity spike. It's kind of like that move in Destiny where you kind of jump up and slam down the ground and like explodes everything. So it's just running through that. And in between, they do have like little story like vignettes of CGI story. So it's fine for what it is, I suppose. If you want to learn about these people, since most of them, at least half of them, were from Black Ops 3 too. So you kind of learn a little bit more about the characters. But I've been kind of ignoring the chatter here that you guys have been doing.
No, so we're just thinking there's so many games that we've got that we've hit this fall and we all are in the Chrome beta for streaming with Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Yes.
But other than you, which you've dabbled in it a little bit, and I'd let you talk about it. But I'm wondering, and if we want to push that off to another show, given that we're past our hour mark, and there's probably a little more time that we could all spend with Chrome streaming and talk about that at a different show as well.
Yeah, I think I definitely would like to push that off. I was going to try to kind of like shoehorn it in here at the end, but yeah, because there's a lot I want to talk about that because it's just how well it plays or not. We'll have to find out. But if there's anything else that anybody else wants to talk about, any games, real quick, DB Mega Man, good or bad?
It's a Mega Man game. It's pretty. If you played the demo, it's out on everything. Play the demo, and if you like the demo, you're gonna get more of the same game. So enjoyed it, but again, it is what it is. So you kind of know what you're getting. There's a lot that's come out already, and we're only halfway through the fall, right? We kind of hit this. Everybody's trying to get a lot out before Red Dead hits next week, and then actually this week, right? We get Red Dead at the end of the week, and then we get one more kind of push in November. So I'm sure we'll have more new stuff to talk about as we keep moving through this fall season.
Anybody getting Red Dead here?
I have it coming from GameFly. But I did get the announcement from GameFly that the PlayStation 4 version of Red Dead is not shipping until the second week of November.
Nice.
That the Xbox version is shipping on the 30th, but similar to the news story where Red Dead was sending out, or Take-Two was sending out to kind of mom and pop local realtors that they're not getting the game until next week. It seems they're claiming supply chain limitations and that there's delays up and down the supply chain. So yeah, I'm hoping to try it, but again, it feels like I should try it, given that it's Red Dead and that it's going to be a big game this year. But I don't know that I've hit the hype train for it yet. How about that?
Okay. Swiss or Gascles, are you going to pick it up? Try it out?
If I do, it's not going to be the next few months, probably. There's just other games that tickle my fancy more.
All right.
So jury's still out for me. I'm not sure. It'll depend on when I start seeing review scores. If I do plan on making a new purchase at the end of the week, but if I were going to pick one thing that I was going to pick up now, it would be Soul Calibur 6. So,
nice.
We'll see if
I forgot about that. Yeah.
We'll see if Red Dead review scores come out and change my opinion.
Did they have a special character for each version of that, or is it just Geralt on all versions?
I think it's just Geralt for all versions this year.
Yeah. And I would pick that up on PlayStation 4 if I were picking that today. But we'll see how that goes.
All right, yeah, that definitely will be one that I want to look forward to in the future because I always like the Soul Calibur series. So, all right, guys, we're a little bit over, but that's all right. We're talking games, and we kind of didn't get into our topic either, but that's all right. Well, maybe next show. So, on behalf of Mr. Swissguard, Mr. DBQ Hams, and the guest Cleese, I am Osiris Prime. We will see you next time.